But just for people that don't, Ben, can you give us a bit of background, your business background, where you came from, your education? Because a lot of
Okay.
people probably need to know all that sort of stuff. And I'm going to drop a little surprise in for everybody once you've done that, Ben, which you know about anyway, because we talked about it the other day. So, Ben, just let everybody know exactly who you are and what you're about.
Yeah. Okay. So just very briefly, without wishing to bore everyone rigid, my name is Ben Habib. I'm leader of a new party called Advance UK. I was deputy leader of Reform, um, but for reasons which I think most people will be aware of, I fell out with Reform. Um, my history starts in June 1965. I was born in Karachi to a Pakistani father and a Christian English mother. Um, uh, Dad was born in Punjab, mum was born in Isleworth. My father came from genuinely humble beginnings. I know all politicians like to talk about how humble their beginnings were because that's the way that they try and ingratiate themselves with the public. But actually, my dad genuinely came from a poor background. My mother came from a very middle class English background. Her father worked for Tate and Lyle, and his father before him was a vicar. Um, so, middle class English family. I spent the first 13 years of my life in Pakistan, coming backwards and forwards to the United Kingdom. But, living in Pakistan, I went to the Karachi Grammar School, which was a grammar school set up by the Scottish Regiment when it was stationed in Pakistan. And my father was a member of a club called the Sind Club, not Sin as in SIN, but SIND, which was also set up by the Scottish Regiment in Pakistan, in Karachi, which was stationed there. And I think it was set up in 1883 by memory.
Yeah.
Um, and which is, I mentioned that only because the tailwinds of the British Empire, were still flowing through the subcontinent and Pakistan as I grew up. So even though I was born in Pakistan, it was quite an Anglo-centric kind of upbringing I had, going to English clubs and English school and so on. And then Pakistan went down a really bad journey. Started the beginnings of what became a very bad journey when Bhutto, but just before he was deposed, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, he went quite Islamic. In the
Right.
pursuit of trying to appeal to the people, he appealed to their religion and the country. That's when it started its journey towards a more fundamentalist form of governance, Muslim governance. And alcohol was banned, much to the consternation of my father. But more importantly, there was a coup. He was ousted. There were 9 months of school closures. And my mum said, enough is enough. Our children need to be educated. They're not getting a proper education here. So we were sent to boarding school in England. And I was at boarding school. I went to rugby school from the first year at rugby all the way through till the end of A levels, and then I went to Cambridge University. I was head of school at rugby.
Right.
I played for various sports, and then I went to Cambridge. I boxed for Cambridge.
I was
Left
going
Cambridge.
to. That's what I was going to mention, Ben, because I think a lot of people, you know, um, when they hear someone that's very well spoken and very well educated, they don't think of them getting in the ring. And I just want to say, I've boxed a lot of the sort of the lads that will follow you as a result of our friend Tommy, giving his backing, will have also boxed, and it just, to get in a boxing ring, it doesn't matter what level you box at, especially in doing it at a university or in the military or whatever, you're standing in front of a lot of people and you can make yourself look very stupid if you get plonked on your backside. So I think that just says a
Yeah.
lot. There's courage to
Well,
get in a
thank you.
boxing ring. You need to have courage. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. Well,
Sorry, go
thank
on.
you.
I
And I think
interrupted.
it's a great discipline, boxing. It does a couple of. I don't know how many people want to talk about boxing, but
Yeah, why not?
you
Yeah.
know, the couple of things I learned from it, apart from the supreme physical fitness you have to get into a ring, it's the trepidation that you first experience when you're going into combat. A trepidation over which you cease to fear being hit after a bit. And that sounds like maybe you've
That's
been hit too
right.
much, but you do stop fearing it. And
Yeah.
you come to terms with what it means to face a bit of danger and not to fear that, which is a natural human fear, but you cease fearing it. And the other thing I think, which is really good about boxing, and I'm sure you would have experienced it and every other boxer has, you come out of the ring friends with your opponent
Yeah.
because you've actually set ego aside. You've had to face each other, stripped literally virtually naked.
Mhm.
There's no hiding. He knows you in a way that some other people don't know you, and you know him. And so you will almost invariably come out of the ring really feeling quite a degree of respect and well, not love, but friendship.
Yeah,
With
there's a
your
ca-
with your
there's a camaraderie, isn't it? That I think,
there's a camaraderie. Yeah,
and I think, unique to boxing probably, and if maybe there's a few other sports, but specifically boxing, one, there is a chance of getting seriously hurt, so that's one thing. But the other thing is, you are literally on your own when you're in the ring. Doesn't matter what your
yeah,
corner are saying. When someone's jabbing you, hitting you with uppercuts, there's, like you say, there's
yeah.
nowhere to hide. There's no. It's not like a rugby team where you can kind of get offside and take a bit of a
Yeah,
breather. You're
Richard,
on it.
they never got close enough to uppercut me.
It's,
I was,
the first time I boxed, I got caught with a cracking uppercut, and it was just like someone turned the light on and off, and I never got caught again
I
like that.
know.
But
I mean that it's a lethal punch.
brutal.
But anyway, so I did that.
Yeah.
Then I went to the city. I began a life in finance. I went into property development. I had no desire to go into politics. I thought the whole thing was a waste of time. Anyway, we had Maggie Thatcher when I left university, and everything seemed to be hunky dory. The biggest arguments we had were, should the tax rate be X or Y? Um, there was no threat to the country. There was no fear that the country may cease to exist. We took our Englishness, we took our British citizenry for granted. We were the best country in the world. We may not be the most powerful any longer, but we were undoubtedly the best. I came out of school and university thinking our forefathers had never put a foot wrong. Yeah, there were the odd blips here and there, but actually our empire was a force for good, and actually, which was reinforced by my childhood. So I left university and with this really very settled, complacently settled view of the United Kingdom, and something that I thought was incapable of being set aside. And then I got married, I had children, and I spent my most of my life working to make money to look after my children to a greater or lesser extent in terms of success, but reasonably successfully. And I wasn't interested in politics. And then my balloon went up in 2016. Richard, I didn't even campaign to leave the EU.
Yeah.
I, I donated to Vote Leave, but
Yeah.
only because Mark Carney and Osborne were talking nonsense. I thought, this is rubbish.
Mhm.
We're not going to have an economic setback just because we vote to leave the EU. And that was the first time in what has now been a journey of unpeeling this onion. You keep peeling and you see more and more. But it was the first time I realized something's not right in the British political landscape. And the more I've got into politics, the more I've looked at the political institutions we've got, our politicians, the way we're governed, I've realized that actually, and it probably started with the EU, we've set aside what it means to be British. We are setting aside the concept of the nation state that is the United Kingdom. We're dancing to the tune of foreign interests, not to our own interests. And I say foreign in terms of foreign from abroad, but also foreign alien to us. Ideologies, extreme forms of uh, self-harm perpetrated through regulations and economic, etc. And as I peel this onion back, I've become increasingly concerned about the direction of travel of the country, and the complacency I had as a young man has completely been replaced by an utter fear that the country will cease to exist. This wonderful country, which has given so much to the world and which was looked on by the world with such fondness, largely, um, and still is. I think is losing its place very, very, very rapidly. And so I think it falls to people like yourself, myself, and no doubt the people who are giving up their good afternoon to listen to me, to mount a battle to restore our country, to get back the United Kingdom. So that's basically my journey. If
I
that's
think that's I mean,
yeah,
and again, because obviously, when you look on social media, people saying, "Well, Ben said this then, and Ben said this whenever," and I'm going, "Hold on a minute. It doesn't matter what you said even 6 months ago, or let alone 5 or 6 years ago, or whatever it is. because somebody was quoting from a Business Insider story, and I can't remember what the
Yeah,
quote
well,
was.
we can talk about that if you like. I mean, so
Not,
they
I
keep,
don't. Well,
yeah,
we could
yeah,
do.
yeah,
I don't think we need
yeah.
to, because the
No,
reality is
okay.
what you said. What you said 5 years ago is irrelevant. It wasn't anything particularly. It was about UKIP, and whenever. In fact, the interesting thing is, Ben, what we did, because I was involved in the whole UKIP thing with Jared and the football guys and the veterans. We kind of put this team together to do pretty much what Advance is doing now, and if it
Yeah,
had worked, and yours and my mutual friend Nigel hadn't scuppered it, which he did. He completely destroyed that project as well, deliberately. That's another story.
yeah.
We would maybe have been in a completely different situation. You might not have had to put the gloves back on and get in the ring again.
No, exactly right. And remember, I came to politics new in 2019. I'd just
Yeah,
come to it,
yeah,
really just with Brexit in mind. And I had accepted the narrative. I'd be straight up with you. I'd accepted the narrative. I believed that Cameron was a conservative, that
yeah,
we were being run by conservative principles. And I accepted the narrative that UKIP were a bunch of swivel-eyed lunatics from the far right, because
yeah.
that was what was put in the mainstream. I read the Financial Times and I read the mainstream media. And it took a while to unpick what the hell was going on. You know,
Exactly. And that's what I would say to anybody that, if people look through my social media for the past 10 years, I just hope the police don't ever do it. But if anybody looks through my social media for the last 10 years, some of the stuff that we say, oh, that's way off, because you change and you develop and
yeah,
you hone things. And I think people have got to realize that. So, I think it's good to bury that sort of stuff and say, well, look, it doesn't matter what we thought 5 years ago or even a year ago. If you're awake now and you've realized what's really going on in the country, that's the important thing. And again, anybody's going to, if that's all people can pick on, then they ain't got much to pick on, Ben, as far as I'm concerned. So,
yeah. No, I'm delighted they had to go back 6 years and
yeah,
find one article.
exactly,
Um,
exactly.
Everything else has been pretty much on straight down straight down the middle. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, before we go on, Ben, I want to thank you on behalf of the people of Northern Ireland. I said this to you privately, as you know, but I want to do it publicly and thank you for the work that you did. Again, when you realize what Boris was up to, when you realize what a dreadful deal or no deal that we got from Brexit for Northern Ireland, and the people of Northern Ireland, the amount of people that are talking about Advance and saying, when can we, in fact, let's go on to that. I'm going to get the questions way out of sync
Yeah.
now, but while we're
Okay.
talking about that,
Yeah.
first of all, thanks
Okay.
for what you've done in Northern Ireland. Let's talk about how Advance can help Northern Ireland and what we can do with the people of Northern Ireland, and probably with maybe smaller parties as well. How can we kind of collaborate and make
Yeah.
something good happen in Northern
So,
Ireland?
so the first thing to say is whether you're English, Scottish, Welsh, or Northern Irish, you need to be very, very worried about the Northern Ireland Protocol. Um, uh, if you believe in the union, you should be worried about it because it is literally splitting our country in half. I have a Supreme Court ruling as a result of the legal action I took that confirms that the acts of union, literally the acts of union that created the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, have been set aside by the protocol. And it didn't even make the 9 o'clock news when Boris Johnson signed that the acts of union have been broken. It didn't make the news. There was no mention. That's how hijacked our political class has been. But leaving aside that fundamentally important issue, even if you're an Englander and you've got no interest in the union because you're just an English nationalist, you should still worry about the Northern Ireland Protocol, because the Northern Ireland Protocol gives the European Union a mechanism through Northern Ireland to control Great Britain. There are provisions which affect businesses in Northern Ireland, which, if they have a footprint in Great Britain, they're affected. It also means, for example, that if you try and create deportation policies, as Nigel Farage tried last week to articulate, a deportation policy for the UK, you can't actually apply it to Northern Ireland. So anything that you do in Great Britain, Scotland, Wales, and England, actually is undermined because Northern Ireland has a different set of regulations associated with it. We can't we can't set a path for the United Kingdom, for the betterment of the United Kingdom and its people, for as long as Northern Ireland stays in the European Union as it is at the moment. So, for all those um, people in England who don't care about Northern Ireland. It's a deficit economy. Why can't they get their act together? They're always bickering. There is a mentality like that.
Yeah.
What I say to those people is wake up. It's affecting you. You are being damaged by the protocol. But the big point, of course, is this point. The big point about the protocol is that if you can't stand up as a country for 1 million British citizens in the country, it should be no surprise that we've lost Chagos, that Gibraltar's been handed over, and that
Yeah.
the Falklands will go, and that we will be a diminished country. You do not get more powerful and more prosperous by giving up territory. You certainly don't do it by giving up part of your country. The message you also send to the international community and our enemies is that we are weak. We cannot stand for our own. So it is absolutely critical that anyone standing for number 10 or any form of office in Westminster absolutely bloody gets it that Northern
Yeah.
Ireland mustn't be allowed to leave.
Yeah.
That's the position from which I started my battle for Northern Ireland, that we needed to do it for the Union and our country generally. Having started that battle, I've also discovered, having spent lots of time now in Northern Ireland, that some of you are Ulster nationalists, and
Yeah.
it's like your unionism is kind of, well, pox on all of you lot. But
Yeah.
the vast majority are really true blue, the best unionists in the country. And one of the things an advanced UK government would do is we would terminate the protocol. We'd get rid of the IRSC. That in itself, Richard, that one step
Yeah.
will set the United Kingdom free, because we will have to have a battle. We'll have the mother of all battles with the European Union.
Yeah.
And in that battle, we will liberate ourselves. We will have no option but to liberate ourselves. Only policies that liberate us will protect us. And so in that one action, and again, mainstream politicians don't get it. Farage doesn't, I don't mean to go on to Farage, but he doesn't care about Northern Ireland. He
Yeah.
sees it as a peripheral non-issue. But if he wants to save the country, you've got to terminate the protocol. That's what gives you the fire in your belly to save the entire United Kingdom. It gives you the mechanism to do it.
And if you did that as well, Ben, what it would do, it would actually free Northern Ireland as well. It would mean Northern Ireland could maybe have a different corporation tax rate. It could do all sorts of things.
Absolutely.
So many shackles could come off with that. A
Yeah.
free port.
Couldn't agree more. And,
Yeah.
everyone says it's a deficit economy. It's a deficit economy because it has an open economy with the Republic, and the Republic gets billions of euros pumped into it, and it has a tax regime which is half the tax rate of Northern Ireland. How could Northern Ireland compete? It's
Exactly.
impossible. It's
Yeah.
been condemned. It's been condemned to failure by our government. And one of the examples I use is that the time it takes, I think, I'm going by memory now, the 80 miles that it takes from a train from Londonderry to Belfast, I think is 2 hours 20, which is about 30 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So from one of the biggest cities to the capital of Northern Ireland takes 2 hours 20 minutes. It's the same time it took in Victorian times.
Yeah. And that's it. I mean, that says everything you need to do. No, and
It does.
exactly. And I think from the point of view of, obviously, what you'll have, Ben, when you propose this, you can imagine the liberal elite in Northern Ireland, because we have our own liberal elite with Sinn Féin, the Alliance Party, the UUP, etc. They're going to be reaching for the smelling salts and saying this breaks the Good Friday Agreement. It actually doesn't break the Good Friday Agreement. The protocol's broken the Good Friday
It's
Agreement.
already broken it.
Yeah.
It's already set it aside. But even if they make that argument, Richard,
Yeah.
what a sovereign, proud nation does is say, I'm really sorry, folks, if you don't like it, but Northern Ireland is British. We don't want to pick a fight with you, but it is our country. So if you don't like it, sod off.
Yeah. And I think the way to, because obviously you'd have to try and win soft. You're never going to win Sinn Féin over with that sort of argument, because they're just, well, you're not going to win them over. But there are soft nationalists and people who would be sort of middle of the roadish, that I think if you put the economic arguments in a very, very intelligent way and a well thought out way, you kind of even set aside the idea of unity and all that sort of stuff. So you can argue that another day. This is to make you better off and make you prosper. And of course, the only time that anyone will put a border down there is if the EU do it. If we say, right, okay, we're going to get rid of the Irish sea border, we don't care whether there's a border between you and the Republic. You can do what you want. Yeah,
do what you want. And that's
yeah,
the position we had taken
yeah,
earlier.
yeah.
And then for some reason, Theresa May bottled it, and then Boris Johnson bottled it again.
Unbelievable. I mean, this, yeah. I mean, the
Yeah.
threat of bombs on the border was well. I mean, if that did happen, it would show that the peace process was a sham. Anyway, we wouldn't have. Anyway, that's
Yeah. Yeah.
enough on Northern Ireland. One more thing on Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland veterans, Ben. Obviously, they're getting right now. Ex-SES guys, ex-Special Forces guys, or some friends of mine are still getting hounded by ambulance chasing lawyers
Yeah.
and the legal system in Northern Ireland. What's your message for them? What would you do to protect the veterans in Northern Ireland that
I
have
would
been?
have it. I would have an immediate indemnity for the veterans. I mean, it's
Yeah,
extraordinary that the Legacy Act actually protected the terrorists and didn't protect the veterans. And I heard Hilary Benn. You probably saw this because Hilary Benn came out saying that he's going to have he's going to get rid of the Legacy Act and bring in something new. I can't believe for a second that anything Hilary Benn brings in is going to be better for Northern Ireland. It'll be worse.
exactly.
And as bad as the Legacy Act is, Lord Hermer was going to change it. I don't know if you followed this, Richard. He was going to remove the two clauses which prohibited Gerry Adams from bringing a case against the British government for wrongful imprisonment. He was going to remove those two clauses and allow Gerry Adams to bring a case against the British government. This is our Attorney General. Our Attorney General was going to put the country in harm's way. The man should be up on trial himself.
Yeah,
But
I
that,
agree.
awful
I,
man.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I mean, really, I think the whole lot of them should be on trial for treason for a lot of the stuff they've done because it is, the way they've undermined the. So okay, so let's park Northern Ireland there. I suppose the next thing we want to talk about is how important is the 2029 general election, and what what do you think Advance UK can do if we get a good headwind? What can we actually do in 2029? I know what I think we can do, but what do you think we can do, Ben?
So two-party politics is broken. The notion that you can split the vote is only a notion that could be applied if there was a series of parties all espousing the same view. There isn't a single party that espouses our view of nation state, freedom, democracy, and equality under the law. And as much as Reform may wish to categorize themselves as pro-British, actually they're all over the shop. I don't want to get into a detailed
Yeah,
discussion on Reform, though I'm happy
yeah,
to do it if you'd like to,
yeah,
but they don't stand for our principles. The Conservatives obviously don't stand. For our principles, they've delivered the country into the predicament in which we now find ourselves. So there's no splitting of the vote
yeah,
because there's only one party that actually stands unashamedly for pro-British values and putting the United Kingdom first, and that is Advance UK. And so the first thing to achieve, Richard, in my mind, is to set the correct direction of travel for British politics. And I think if we bravely shine a light on the problems facing the country, bravely shine a light on the root causes of those problems and provide solutions at the same time, I think people will see that this is the path we need to take if we want to restore the country.
yeah,
And it's not good enough just to bang the drum of complaint and say this is all everything's terrible, everything's terrible. You've got to unpick the problems and show people how we can deal with the problems. If we can do that, we will carry the nation with us because they will see that we offer the solutions required. If we carry the nation with us, because two-party politics is done,
yeah.
Richard, we could win the next damn election.
That's what I'm in it for, Ben. Because I don't think there's any point in doing it if we don't think we can win the next general election.
Yeah.
There's a question related to that. What happens if we don't win the next? And I'm gonna try and get you onto Project Fear here, except in a good way, right? What happens if we don't win the next general election?
The only reason we won't win the next general election is if we haven't been able to convey our message properly to the British people.
Yeah,
That's the only outcome. That's the only reason I think we wouldn't win. Then the question is, to what extent have we conveyed the message? Where are we in the polls? If we're polling 0% in 2029, I'll be coming on a podcast with you and saying, well, that was all a bit of fun, but we didn't succeed. But I don't think it's going to be that way. I am 90% certain that whatever happens, we're going to be a force with which the other parties need to reckon. 90%. if not higher. They're going to have to reckon with us. I think we're going to go higher in the polls within months than people think. And if any party, what if any so Reform and Conservative are the only options really. If we're polling, let's say at 5 or 10%, let's say, they are going to need us on side in order to form a government. And we will have to find a mechanism by which we make sure Labour goes, but also make sure we get a pro-British government. It's not about Advance UK. It's about making sure we get the right policies being made by government.
Exactly.
And we will stand against them, absolutely against the other parties, without fear, without favour. I'm not doing any bloody shady deals in
Yeah.
back
Yeah.
rooms for this, that, and the other. And they can't get me with an ennoblement. I'm not going to fall for that stupid little trick. I've been to the Lords a few times. You know, when I used to go to the Lords, I'm digressing, but when I used to go to the Lords as a child, I was overwhelmed with awe. What an institution, the ermine and the red and the
Yeah.
magnificence of the chamber and so on. I go in there now and I think I'm going into a den of thieves because they've so undermined the institution. And
Yeah.
that's one of the challenges we're going to have, is to restore our parliamentary system. But so no one's buying me off. No one's buying the party off. We're going to absolutely stand tall, stand firm, stand for our principles, and we will carry the day. And I can say this absolutely certainly. Whether or not we form the next government will be a pro-British government, and it'll be pro-British because of us.
Yeah.
It's definitely happening.
Yeah, I totally agree on all that. But I mean, a feeling I've got, maybe I should say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. A feeling I've got is that there's people in the background that are angling towards a reform conservative coalition. You know, Charlie Downs said when he was on the Andrew Gold show the other day that there's no room for another party. That would suggest that what he thinks is that there's some way that the Tories and Reform can come together and save the country. If I'm right in thinking that, why is he wrong?
There's no way that they can do. They won't be able to do a deal without also carrying us. If we're at 5 or 10%, the landscape is completely splintered. They have to carry us, and if they want to carry us, we're not bending in our views. We will
Yeah.
force the agenda.
So we'll drag them
Yeah.
onto our ground. Yeah.
Absolutely. They have to come to our ground. One of the biggest mistakes Farage made, amongst many mistakes he's made, was denouncing Suella Braverman and Robert Jenrick.
Yeah.
And the reason that was a mistake was because the Conservative Party were very fearful that they would lose Suella Braverman and Jenrick to Reform. In saying that Suella's this, that, and the other, and denouncing them, basically Reform has taken all pressure off the Conservative Party to be conservative, because they now know that Suella ain't going anywhere. Are you with me?
Yeah,
Or
absolutely.
at least at the time they would have thought that.
Yeah.
And Farage also said, I'm going to be to the left of the Conservative Party. So all the pressure came off the Conservatives. He
Yeah.
removed all the pressure from them. But of course now we exist.
Yeah.
And Suella, I like Suella a lot. We get on well. And I'm not saying anything about her future political plans. But again, the Conservatives will have to be looking over their shoulder thinking, oh, damn, there is pressure now on that side of the equation. So, and Reform will be looking, let me tell you, the 30,000 members were, there or thereabouts. The vast majority of the 30,000 members we've got have come from Reform, no
Yeah.
doubt. They would have been inundated with emails and texts saying we're leaving, we're joining Advance. They know we're coming.
Yeah. And also, Ben, the other thing is that basically you've not just got the people coming from Reform, you've got that lot as well, because obviously
Yeah, that lot. Yeah.
Richard Tice infamously, I'm going to get a T-shirt with "I'm one of that lot," and so you've got that working class vote coming in behind you. What can you do? Because obviously a lot of working class people feel right the way from Northern Ireland right the way through to Scotland, England, feel very disenfranchised, very ignored by the great and the good. What can you offer them to make Advance different and a better option for people in the old red wall, people that are stuck in little towns and villages around the coast of England, people in Northern Ireland going, do you know what, we're sick of politics as it is. we want something new. What's Ben got to offer, and what's the party got to offer?
So, I mean, I think the critical thing in life is waking up every morning thinking that you can improve your own lot and improve the lot of your family and your children. You have to have a belief, rightly or wrongly, you have to believe that through your own endeavors, you can make an improvement in your own life. That's what we call aspiration. That has been basically set aside by ever increasing tentacles of the state over managing. We used to call it a nanny state. I now call it a wet nurse. You literally can't move without
Yeah,
the wet nurse doing something. And we've got 7.7 million people on universal credit, 3 million people not even looking for a job,
yeah,
1.5 million people having to subsidize their earnings because of not being able to earn enough, the minimum wage and so on, not generating enough income for them to survive. We have a country that's basically going down an economic plug hole. And there's going to have to be some tough medicine.
yeah,
But the general overall holistic approach, I think, to solving the country's economic woes is slash immigration, remove all benefits from foreigners. We're spending 10 billion a year in benefits on foreigners, not even British citizens.
yep,
Deport all illegal migrants. Now that has
yep,
an economic impact. It removes so British workers are having their wages undermined at the moment by cheap imported labor. And you remove that cheap imported labor, wages have to rise.
yep,
So you get paid more. There'll be a period of inflation, but that wages will rise, and more than the inflationary effects of it.
yep,
You've got to slash welfare. You've got to make sure that those people who are on welfare are there because they genuinely need it, and no one is malingering.
yep,
And you've got to create that gap between what you can earn in work and what you earn in welfare. And on top of that, you've got to reduce the taxes on the working and middle classes so that when they have earned a fair wage, that they're allowed to keep their legitimate earnings. And I think if you do those 3 or 4 things, you'll. Sorry, there's one more thing we've got to
yep.
do. We've got to ditch net zero because
That was the next question actually,
yeah,
Ben. So I'm glad you came on. So
yeah,
we ditched net zero. What do we do? Do we drill, baby, drill, like Donald said in
yeah,
America?
absolutely.
Yeah,
We reduce taxes on fossil fuel companies. I'm in touch with a number of chief executives of fossil fuel companies. They say even if you got rid of net zero, they're paying 78% tax. Now, they say, sod it, we're not doing business in the UK. We can go to other countries where they
that was.
charge no
And
tax.
if I can just interject, that was brought in by Boris Johnson's government, I think.
Boris Johnson,
Yeah,
75%, and this lot have taken it to
yeah,
78%.
yeah,
I mean, why would you go? Why would you work? Anyway, so reduce the tax burden on fossil fuel companies to a more normal level, give them the licenses they need to drill, and stop this ridiculous enforced drive towards net zero. Net zero is not just about shifting our energy sources. The net zero pol- policy also requires us to spend inordinate sums of money on our homes, changing perfectly good gas boilers for heat exchangers. It requires much more investment in new build housing. So new build housing becomes prohibitively expensive.
yep,
It prohibits also the conversion of existing offices or flats above shops and prohibits that from being brought back into use because you can't meet the standards of net zero. So net zero is impacting everything. And of course, you've got to throw away perfectly good cars to get an electric car,
yeah,
which actually from carbon emission output, by the way, is not much better than a fossil fuel car.
yeah.
So there's net zero is not just about getting cheaper energy. It's about getting rid of all the ill effects around it, which are impoverishing us. And I mean, my business is property. Stop me if this is too
No, it's good
much
because
detail.
I think the
Yeah.
detail we need to go into this detail. The next thing I was going to ask you was about the housing crisis, and obviously you're touching on that with the net zero thing, and obviously with the immigration thing. What's the solution to the housing crisis, and even things like the buy to let situation where small investors are being literally pushed out of the market by the government's ridiculous tax regimes? Would you look to help the small investors get back into those markets, or is that
Yeah,
too much of a
no, absolutely. I'm a property man. That's
yeah,
my business.
yeah,
I mostly do commercial property, but I've done a lot of development for resi.
yeah,
When I used to do resi development in the early 90s, it used to cost us a couple of £1,000 to get outline planning consent. At that point, we knew we could buy the property and we could move with confidence.
Yeah.
Now it costs 100 grand for a similar kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you're looking at it and you're thinking, I'm not even going to take the risk.
Yeah.
It's all prohibitive. Highly regulated markets, highly taxed markets prohibit business. They
Yeah.
make people think twice before they do anything. So we have to deregulate. We have to cut costs. We have to release the planning system. Let it flourish. Let people do what they want to do. We've got lots of tired town centres. Why? Because the buildings would cost too much money to meet modern building standards
Yeah.
if you were bring them back into use. Relax the standards,
Yeah.
let them be used,
Yeah.
bring them back, that kind of thing. So reduce immigration obviously takes pressure off housing,
Yeah.
reduce the regulatory burden associated with development. That brings lots of stock back into use. Reduce the taxation, as you rightly pointed out. We used to be able to, for example, offset the cost of owning a rental property against the income you earn. It was like a business. Now you can't do that. You've got to pay tax on all the income, and the costs are for your pocket.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you
I mean,
know,
it just get a lot of friends I've got that are involved in that. The smaller guys, it just completely priced it, and then you get the big monsters coming and buying up all that property, and the small guy who's probably going to take a lot more care and attention of his property than your average, than Blackrock.
yeah.
Put it that way. If you're going to
Can I
implement,
just say one thing?
sorry, yeah,
Property
sorry,
development used to be um, a small business activity. Lots of property developers around the country all producing property. It was,
absolutely.
and we haven't got that anymore.
I agree, 100%. And a lot of people, and again, we're talking about aspirational. A lot of working class people, builders, joiners, plumbers, electricians, bought properties, did them up, and that's how they became wealthy. That's how
Yeah.
they sort of lift themselves out of being not poor, but got themselves into a different financial situation. They can't do that now. It's almost
No.
impossible for a young man to do that. And again, for young people, what hope can you give to young people that just can't get on the property ladder, Ben? And we'll close property off in a minute because I want to go into some other things, but what
Yeah,
hope
but
can
I
you
mean,
give
I
them?
think I think if you do all that I've just said, you will
Yeah.
dramatically increase the supply of property.
Yeah.
You'll remove quite a lot of the demand from foreigners coming in and buying property, etc.
Yeah.
And if you increase supply and you reduce demand, it becomes possible to buy stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
obviously, if you have a growing economy because people's wages are rising and taxes are coming down, you've got more money in your pocket to be able to buy it too. Everything comes right
Yeah.
if you take a holistic approach to solving the problem and you don't just politicians tend to think in narrow frameworks. They think about immigration, but they only think about immigration when they're thinking about immigration.
Yeah.
When they're thinking about taxing the working classes, all they're doing is thinking about taxing the working classes. They're not looking at how they marry up everything to produce a result which is going to supercharge the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
And and that's what we need to do.
And that is what we need. And obviously, when Liz Truss tried to, do something, well, not something similar. She tried, in I suppose a bit of a cack-handed way, to breathe a bit of life into the economy when she became prime minister. She was, I mean, it was a coup. She was pushed out
It
by a
was a
coup,
coup, yeah.
and the financial markets were involved in it. The Bank of England, as far as I know, was involved in it. How can if Ben Habib's prime minister in 2029, how can we stop the institutions and the deep state doing what they did to Liz Truss to Advance and to you and to us as a people supporting Advance? How can we stop that happening?
So there are a couple of things. She was trying to change direction of travel in the middle of a parliament. So she didn't have the backing of the British people or a manifesto to
Yeah,
which she could point and say, I was elected to deliver this.
yeah,
If we have a manifesto on which we're elected, the Lords can't stand in our way. They can't do it. And on the first day of Parliament, I mean, I absolutely know what we're going to do. First day of Parliament is going to be shock and awe. It'll be, and it's more powerful than what Trump did because in Trump case, the courts can come along and cause him trouble. If we go into Parliament and we change the law at day one, and we're going to change a lot of laws at day one,
mhm,
we will go into government with the laws drafted, with what we need to do drafted. And we're just going to go into Parliament with the majority and say, here it is. And the Lords can't resist because we were elected on this ticket. And once the law changes, still we've got to reverse the long march through the institutions. We've got to sack a lot of civil servants, but and that'll take time.
yeah,
But we will get the bedrock of the United Kingdom set at day one. We
Yeah.
will also have this fight with the European Union that I mentioned. At day one, we're going to revoke the Northern Ireland Protocol, tear up the trade and cooperation agreement. Now, that's going to send people into, oh my God, we're going to have a trade war with the EU. Yes, we're going to have a trade war with the EU, but it's a war we will win because we will deregulate and we will cut taxes and we will supercharge our economy. And if they want to have that fight, let them have that fight. The other thing I just want to mention is things have changed dramatically in the last year. And the reason I say that is, first of all, I think the Overton window, the proverbial Overton window of what is acceptable, is rapidly moving in our favor. But
It's been
also we
smashed. Yeah.
have, but also we've got protective, supportive American administration that wants us to do precisely what Advance UK stands for, and so we will have the support of America behind us.
Yeah.
We're going to deliver.
No, I totally agree. A couple of sort of contentious things. One is obviously immigration. We talked about immigration. We're gonna send the illegals back. There's an issue with the right to remain. A lot of the asylum, I believe, a lot of them are bogus asylum seekers are getting right to remain, which means they can stay here for 5 years and they can get naturalized and get a British passport and so on and so forth. How can we
First,
screw?
first day, first day,
Yeah,
first day of
yeah,
our government, we will have a moratorium on granting indefinite leave to remain,
good.
and there'll be a moratorium on the granting of British citizenship. We will also have a program. I'm speaking ahead, and I don't want to get into too much policy, but this is an overarching approach. We will also have a program for the consensual, peaceful repatriation of people who are here on indefinite leave to remain. We have to unpick what the government's done.
Yeah, I mean that was I mean and that was a very good answer. And again, I think look, if you're watching this and Ben said something, then you're going to go, oh well, look, he said this on an interview with Richard Inman in whenever. No, this is an aspiration that I think everybody in advance would 100% agree with anyway. So if the policy is slightly different when it gets formulated, I think people have got to give you the grace to say what you want to do, and then the
Yeah.
policy's worked out. Um, Before I go, I want to touch on the structure of the party. Before I go on to that, I want to talk about Islam and particularly radical fundamentalist Islam in view of the fact that 42% of mosques in the UK are Deobandi and 8% are Salafi. So about 50% of mosques in the
Fundamentalist.
UK
Yeah.
are fundamentalist. A lot of people in the UK, 52% of people are saying that Islam is not compatible with the UK. A lot of people are very, very fearful of Islamization, of Islamists and of Sharia law. What can you say to reassure them that we can have policies that will deal with that in a peaceful way, in a way that respects people's rights to freedom of religion, but at the same time deals with the excesses of fundamentalist Islam and Islamism, when the two things are very closely connected but slightly different?
Yeah. So the first thing I want to say is that I think it's really stupid when politicians talk about extremist Islam and how we need to combat it. It's a stupid statement because we need to combat all forms of extremism. They're just pandering, actually. They're fearing talking about Islam openly when they say they're against extremist Islam. Who wouldn't be against any form of extremism? It's a stupid statement. Are
Yeah,
you with me?
yeah,
The challenge with Islam is that it tends to be a fundamentalist religion. The challenge with Islam is that the Quran is the word of God and the word of God is perfect and therefore it cannot be debated. That's it. That's the root issue of the challenge in my mind. And we've got to be prepared to have that debate. But I prefer to tackle it the other way round. And it's an approach that I think every Muslim in this country has to accept and most will accept. And that is this: instead of going head on into the debate on Islam, I want to approach it by saying we are constitutionally a Christian country. Constitutionally, culturally, sure, but constitutionally. And that means when you come to this country, you have to accept that your religion is not the national religion and that every Christian in this country has a right to practice their Christianity and they must be allowed to do so peaceably. That is the religion. We don't have a king who's a head of multi faiths. We have a king that is the head of the Church of England, and that I think we've lost that. You know, in the pursuit of allowing people to be all things that they wish to be, we've forgotten who we are. And I'd much rather make the case for who we are. And I think something else that's got to change, which never occurred really in my childhood or yours, Richard, because we took the country for granted, we took its existence for granted, is we've got to become much more confident and much more proselytizing, if you like, of our own position. We've got to start making sure schools sing the national anthem. Schools sing hymns at assembly, no matter what your ethnic origin. You sing the hymn. And I think hymns are really important because they, if you like, they bring together the constitutional Christian aspect of the United Kingdom with being British. So many of our hymns actually are about the country. You know, that we sing about God or whatever, but actually it's in an envelope of being British. It's conveying that sense of belonging in what it is we stand for. If you go into a church, I'm digressing, but if you go into just about any church, any chapel in the country, you have the names, virtually every single one of which I'm aware. You have the names of people who've done great and good things in their community, and more often than not, people who've died fighting for this country. It's reinforcing a sense of belonging, a statehood, a nationhood. And I think we've got to be much bolder in making sure that that message gets across. We need to have not multiculturalism and diversity, equity, and inclusion. We need to have positive policies for integration. We must eschew multiculturalism. We must say, no, we don't want lots of different communities coexisting, not trusting each other and coexisting, practicing their own cultures. We're British. These are our cultures, and we must have churches everywhere, you know, and so on. Are you with
No,
me?
I absolutely agree on that, and I think even the singing of hymns is very important because hymns are not just rich in cultural references; they're rich in theology. And if we are a culturally Christian nation, we're a culturally Christian nation because we were a theologically Christian nation, and you can't
Yeah.
separate the two there either. So I think, you know, and again, that's my opinion. If you're coming up what I consider to be against a bad idea, if you've got a good idea and you're promoting that in a very, very intelligent and smart way,
It's a better way.
the good idea
Yeah.
is going to win. Now, if there's a
Yeah.
kickback from the culture that doesn't like it, well, then that has to be dealt with by the police, that, you know,
By the
and the
authorities. Yeah.
security services. But you know, I think that's an excellent way of doing it because it takes away. It's about doing it peacefully and doing it without conflict. Because again, there's a
Yeah.
lot of people talking about conflict, and that's why I think whoever wins in 2029 has to be very, very, very switched on and have a really
Yeah.
good plan for how we deal with all these
I agree. Which is
all
why
the
we've got the college and so on.
yes,
But
I
you know,
want the
I've got
yeah, I
I'm
want
just saying
the
I've
yeah,
got Pakistani friends. You know,
yeah,
I'm half Pakistani. I've
yeah,
got
so that, yeah, we
Pakistani
all are, yeah,
friends,
yeah, yeah.
and Pakistanis say to me, "Oh my God, you know, you've become far right. What's
Mm,
happened to you?" I said, I'm not far right. I just believe in the United Kingdom. And when
yeah,
I explain to them that this isn't about being anti-Pakistani or anti any other country, this is about being pro-British.
yeah,
And the Pakistanis are fiercely proud of Pakistan. They wouldn't tolerate any ethnicity going into Pakistan and trying to change their culture. No way. And that's how I explain it to them. And I think if you explain it to the British ethnic minorities that we've now got, that we're championing our country. This is our country. This is what we believe in. You know, and you have to accept our country. And I think they accept it. I think they will accept it.
yeah, and that's what I mean. That's what we've been trying to do with Unite the Kingdom is bring people, and if you look at those marches, we have people from all different backgrounds coming together to celebrate Britishness. They're patriotic. They've got a massive Christian ethos, but they're open to Sikhs, Hindus, Muslims,
Yeah,
anybody, Jews, anybody can come, but they are fundamentally British and Christian at the core. But you look at
absolutely.
them, and they're, you know, that's why the BBC never film them because they're a completely multicultural movement. You know, we're absolutely against ethno nationalism and all the racism
Yeah.
that comes from that side of things. They are that lot. The ethno nats are that lot. That's not what we're about.
No, we're
So
not. We're
I think
about
that
bringing, I don't want division. I want peace and
no,
prosperity.
that's what we all want. Yeah.
Yeah. And
That,
what, you know what, just quickly, one of the reasons I think people have got an issue with our flag, people who are anti-British have got
of
an issue with our flag is because it's overtly a Christian flag.
course. Yeah. Yeah.
You
Cross
know,
St. George,
it's
cross St. Andrew, cross St. Patrick. Yeah.
absolutely, it's Christian.
To- totally. No, I think that's all very encouraging. Let's get onto the structure of the party and the college in particular. I've got a couple of questions on the college. So what is the actual purpose of the college, Ben? Just so, because I'm not,
Yeah,
obviously I've been around the sort of the party for a while, but
yeah.
what's it going to do, and
Okay, so
how
the
does it operate?
college is basically made up of somewhere between 50 and 100 people when we've got it fully populated. It has a number of functions. The first is to just the basic functions. The first is to consider a vote of no confidence in me if there's a move for a vote of no confidence, so that the leader can be removed. And that would be by a simple majority of the college. Um, and the college would approve any new leader coming forward. It would be the college would have to vote in favor of bringing. So that's one major function. The other function, and this is the more interesting function from my perspective, is that no college member will get any money from the party. They have to do it voluntarily. They can't be elected members of parliament or any other elected body. They have to be completely independent from a monetary perspective so that the power of patronage can't be used to influence them. So often I see in Reform and in the Conservative Party Labour that the leaders of those parties, the senior executives of those parties, can make members of the party bend because they say, well, if you don't bend, you won't get the safe seat, you won't get this, you won't get that. But if members of the college know they're never going to be standing, they're never getting a penny, they will vote with their conscience, they will guide with their conscience. And and that makes them a genuinely honest bunch, if
Yeah,
you're with me. They can't be prevailed on. And that is very important, I think, because through the college, you can then carry the philosophy of the party. They're not going to bend because they can't be bought off. So the philosophy of the party should stand the test of time. And because they only get replaced as to 10% every year come up for election, the first election will be in 2020, after the general election. We'll start having elections for the college, replacement elections. 10% of the college will come up for re-election every year. So it'll take 10 years for the entire college to come up for re-election. And that means you can't have entryism. You can't have someone trying to flood your party with antithetical views and to take you over because it'll take 15 years for them to take control of
that
the
was the next
party.
question on the list there, Ben, about entryism. So you're reading my, have you got my notes here? You know, so because I was
No,
going
but
to
I
ask how
did.
do you, because my concern was, I just thought, well, if we get a bit of entryism, and obviously we're supporting you, Ben. I mean, and you know, I do big you up, and I think you deserve it because I think what you're doing is extremely brave, and you don't have to do it. That's what, you know, that's what we talked about this before. You could be sitting having a G&T in the Bahamas if you wanted to. You don't have to do this, you know, and so what would concern me is that we don't get a whole lot of wrong uns joining and then saying, well, I want to get rid of Habib. We want to put our own man in now, you know. So that's kind of answered that question.
So
So
it's quite difficult to do it. I mean, let me just go through the college, if I may, just finish quickly.
yeah,
And because they're brave, capable people in the college, you know, solid, believing in what we believe in, but also have come from different walks of life. And I want the college to comprise people from different parts of the public sector, different walks of life. You would have seen, you know, we've got working class people, we've got highly educated, you know, been through, you know, university degrees. Norman Fenton's a professor of mathematics, for example. You know, I want people from all sorts of parts of society so that when we come to making the policies to deliver our mission, we've got the minds required to help make those policies. You know, one of the problems with political parties, and particularly populist political parties, is that there's lots of banging of the drum, but not
yeah.
much thinking going on. And we've got to bring seriousness back to politics. Where last chance saloon, we've got to create the draft legislation in time for the next government and make sure that we can deliver. So I think the college performs a very important function in that as well. And yeah, so that's basically the college.
Yeah, no, that's great. And then going forward, obviously, you're going to have branch structure. You're going to have branches all over the country. Obviously, we'll talk a little bit more maybe about Northern Ireland and what we can do across here. So, if people are getting involved at the grassroots, what can they do right now as
So
members and as people who want to help push this project forward? What's their best
so the
avenue?
most the immediate thing we've got to do, Richard, is first of all obviously grow our a number of people around the country. We've got to 30,000 members,
Yeah,
just about. Um, And we've got to keep growing that number. But what I would ask people to do is start spreading the word locally. We've got to get people in the country knowing that Advance UK exists. Now, one of the things we're setting up, Floss is setting up, if people know who Floss is, anyway, Floss is setting up, is a portal. I hope we'll get this quite soon, a portal where people can go and just buy leaflets, buy caps, buy merchandise, buy whatever it is they need, and then they can just do Corex boards, stickers for your bumper, and then by allowing people to take control of the promotion of the party rather than doing it top down, I'm hoping we can encourage people who care to go on that portal. But all this stuff will be just sold at cost. And if grants are needed or support's needed, the central office can help with that. But get the message out there. One thing we did really badly in reform was a failure to get leaflets and Corex boards and so on out in the country. We didn't do it. We were not
Yeah.
good at it. And I want to make sure we're good at that. We've only got 4 years, and we've got to get into people need to know we exist. So
Yeah.
so that's a really critical component of the ground game right now.
Yeah, and in terms of, I mean, that leads into another question. Have you been cancelled by GB News? What's going on there? As
I
far as
have. I think
yeah,
the only way I can, the 30th of June, we announced the party.
yeah,
Martin Daubney, who's an old mate and remains a good friend of mine, had me on that day to talk about the party, and I haven't been on since.
wow.
So, and I was on GB News, 2 or 3 times a week.
And what about
And
Talk? Is Talk the same? Has Talk gone the same way? Do you think? Or
talk cancelled me when Tommy Robinson joined the party. When he announced that he joined the party, Talk, and I was on Talk virtually every day, but Talk had cancelled me then. Now, this is very interesting to me because both Talk and GB News claim that they stand for freedom of speech. And they've actually literally cancelled me, not because of anything I've said, not because I've been offensive or I've broken the law or anything, just because in the case of GB News, because I'm standing up against Farage, and in the case of Talk, because Tommy Robinson has exercised his human right to join a political party. That's his human right, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 20 and 21, you have a right of political association. He's exercised that right, and I got cancelled.
yeah, I mean, well, do you know what? I mean, it was one of those ones. I was thinking. I didn't want to say it before, but I thought that is going to happen. I thought I'm just not going to say anything about this because you just know the way they work because they did exactly the same with Jared Batten as well. I mean, it was, but
But
I
it's
think
stupid, isn't it?
it's stupid, and I think if we can, I think the reality is it's like the Trump saying, we need to be too big to rig. We need to be too big to be ignored. And I
Yeah.
think just anyone watching this, and again, I apologize for not going through all the comments and the super chats. Maybe do a bit of that at the end. But I think the reality is, if we get so big, and we get up to if we've got to 30,000, we're breathing down the neck of 30,000 now. You
Yeah.
know, yeah,
Oh no, we're going to get big.
yeah, it's going to be
And we've
100,000.
done, and Richard, we've done that after I was cancelled.
Yeah, with no publicity,
We've done,
apart
why?
from
Yeah,
all those
yeah,
crazy people talking all the time on
podcast.
on YouTube videos and podcasts.
Yeah.
That's the only publicity that's had. And people, when I go down into my town and we do the little protests about migration, everybody knows who Advance UK are. Everybody
Yeah.
down there knows.
That's just
So
amazing, isn't it?
it's absolutely, and there's such an appetite for it, and it's, I just think there's such a massive sense of urgency in people. People are scared, Ben. People are coming
Yeah.
up to me and saying we are scared of what's going to happen in the future. And I think what you're giving is an amazing message of hope and saying, well, it doesn't have to end in a disaster. This isn't the end of the UK. We can do something about it. But again, we've got to do it now, haven't we?
We've got to do it. So what I would say to everyone listening on this podcast is please go out and spread the message. Join up if you haven't joined up already, but then please go out and spread the message. Help us spread the message and use your initiative. Do
Yeah.
whatever you need to do to spread the message.
Yeah. And I mean, finally, Ben, when you're prime minister in 2029, we're going to fast forward to 2039. What's the UK going to look like after 10 years of Advance UK government? I'm not saying you're going to have to stay as prime minister for 10 years, but I don't want to put that burden around your neck. But if
2039, I'll be
2030,
75 years old. Yeah.
yeah, what's the country going to look like if we have 10 years of Advance UK running the show?
So we're going to have borders. our parliamentarians will be a much higher standard because they'll actually be debating things properly, making decisions. Um, our sovereignty will be restored, and we'll look at Parliament with the degree of pride that we used to when we thought it was the mother of all parliaments. Um, we will have an armed forces which will rival the armed forces that we had. I don't know if you saw that photograph I posted of the British fleet in 1953 at the coronation, all laid out. We had more aircraft carriers in the British fleet in 1953 than we do fishing boats in the United Kingdom now. So we're going to get back to being a strong presence on the world stage. We're going to be economically prosperous. We will be unashamedly a Christian country, though we will be very tolerant and peaceful and accepting of other people's views and opinions and ideologies and beliefs, as long as they don't challenge ours. And every man and woman will know what a man and woman is.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, that's roughly what's going to happen,
That's
I hope.
I think everybody watching that can say that that's a fantastic aspiration. And Ben, we've done that we covered a lot of ground there in an hour, so that was pretty amazing because we went through so many different subjects. And again, you didn't trip up once with any of them. I just want to quickly have a look at some of these super chats
Yeah,
here.
I'm happy to stay on if there's questions you want to
Yeah,
field.
I'll have a look what we've got here in these chats. So let's have a look. Hi Ben, what do you think for a Farage? Oh, yeah, what do you think of Farage's performance in front of the U.S. Congress? That's not a fair question to ask, but go on if you want to answer it, Ben. Feel free.
Well, he went there to talk about free speech, but he's continually throwing people out of his own party for not, saying what he wants them to say, exercising their right. And I think he was slightly tripped. Did you see the interview with the congressman who said, you hold press conferences and then you ban certain parts of the press. How is that consistent with free speech? And
Yeah,
he did not have an answer for that.
and
He
it's
was
true.
completely,
It was
it's
true.
true. And it's
He
true.
banned some YouTubers that are not at all right wing. They're just middle of the road
Yeah.
guys,
And can
ex
I just
army guys.
say, there's a guy called David Maddox. Do you know who I mean by David Maddox?
Don't think so. No.
Okay, he was political editor of The Express. The Express was and remains a very big friend of reform, and I think will be of advance too.
Yeah.
David Maddox moved to The Independent, but David Maddox, reform has a huge debt of gratitude to David Maddox. And David Maddox is one of us. He really believes in this country. He was threatened by reform multiple times that he would never be invited unless he towed the line on articles. And he published this yesterday. So the direction of travel of reform is really bad, and I think it's been revealed.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's one of the things. I mean, again, if we go back to what I think's happening in the background, I think reform have kind of been groomed by the establishment for for great things because I think the establishment know that reform ain't going to change anything. They're just
No,
going to keep
yeah, absolutely. And
it's
and talk about free speech. He cancelled me. It's because of him that I've been cancelled on GB News.
I know, and again, there's councillors getting cancelled if they mention Tommy Robinson. They've been cancelled. So I
Yeah.
think soon the people will realise the emperor's got no clothes, and it will be, it's
Have you
boss
noticed that young lady, mother, I believe she is, who flew the Union flag and was arrested in
Sarah.
Epping?
Yeah,
There's Sarah White. There's been
yeah,
no support of her from reform. No support.
and she
I don't
called
know
herself
what the
Reform
story is.
Sarah. She called herself
Yeah,
Reform Sarah. That's what she. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. It's unbelievable.
Well, I mean, look, I mean, Sarah, if you're watching this, there's a place at the table in Advance UK. Just sign up, pay your tenner. The other thing was, how long is the £10 offer gonna last, Ben? Are you gonna stretch it out a little bit, or are you gonna knock it on that? There's a reason I'm asking that because somebody in Northern Ireland gave me 50 quid to buy 5 memberships for people, and I want to make sure I get my money's worth. So
Well, you better get in quickly because it
I
does
bet,
end
I
when we
bet,
get
mate.
to 30,000. Yeah.
I'm going to have to work
Literally,
out a way of doing
literally,
that.
we're down to hundreds now. We're down to
Really?
hundreds. So you better
Yeah.
get in. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's
Yeah.
it. If you haven't joined yet, get in and join because the tenner, it's not going to last forever. But yeah, well, Ben, listen, thanks so much for coming on. That
No,
was
thank you.
really, really good. Really enjoyed it. I hope you did too, and I hope all the viewers enjoyed it. We're up about 2,600 people watching live at the moment, and that's only on
Wow.
my channel. Obviously, I was going to go on. It was going to stream to other people's. Actually, no, I think it's on someone else's channel as well. I think that's maybe Paul Thorpe's or David Vance's. So yeah, it is streaming to someone else as well. So again, guys, thanks very much for tuning in. And again, Ben, we wish you all the best we're all part of the team. We support you 100%, and I really do think you're going to be the next prime minister, and I mean that genuinely and sincerely. I wouldn't be wasting my time with this if I didn't think that, because we can't mess about this. It's too urgent. Last thoughts from you,
Anything is
Ben.
possible. I think, well, just to say thank you very much for having me on, Richard. Thank you for all the support you've given me, and people like you who've supported me, and all those who are giving up their afternoon to listen. All bets are off at the moment. Anything can happen in British politics. The two-party system is broken. People know, the vast majority of people, the 17.4 million people who voted to leave the EU, the people who voted for Boris Johnson believing that he would give us a proud, prosperous, independent, sovereign United Kingdom, all those people are still there, and anything could happen. And with just a bit of a fair wind, we could just win that next general. I know it sounds, people will be looking at me and say, you're not even a registered party yet, but anything is possible. Look at the 30,000 we've got in 2 months.
I agree 100%. I agree 100%. We'll just get ready for government.
Yeah. And that's what we have to do.
Yeah,
we have
absolutely.
to get ready for government.
Yeah.
It's not about just winning the hearts and minds to get into government. We've got to do that too. But we've got to be ready for government.
Yeah.
We've got to be serious about this. Day one, we've got to nail it.
Yeah.
Nail it on day one.
Yeah. And I think the reality is there's going to be a lot of pushback. There's going to be a lot of battles ahead, and we've got to be ready for them. But I really do think that the wind's at our back, and it's just a question of just, when it gets tough, we're just going to have to keep on going and keep on pressing on, because they will. The deep state will throw everything at us. I'm convinced of it.
Yeah,
But
I'm not looking forward to that, but we have to face it. Yeah.
Exactly. I just want to put this one up. I haven't read it, so it's just someone about Northern Ireland. Here in Ulster, kids have to sit in cold, damp makeshift classrooms as we don't have the money. How much is it costing us, and where's the money coming from to house migrants? No one is asking this question. Yeah, I mean, I think that's, we know. I mean, this is a big thing.
I can tell you how much it's costing. I mean, it's costing, by government's own admission, £8 billion a year to house them, feed them, provide them with free medical assistance, provide them with cash in their pockets, give them an iPad for translations. 8 billion a year minimum. That's what the government's telling us. So you can bet your bottom dollar it's more than that.
It's insane, and it's totally destabilizing the country.
It is, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you could have veterans sleeping rough, homelessness right across the United Kingdom, and these people are being brought in boats. Starmer can't even call them illegal migrants. He calls them irregular migrants. If he can't define what they are, he can't deal with the problem.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is, obviously, Farage's plan to deal with the migrants. What do you think about that, Ben?
It was stupid. It got going in the right direction. I thought, well, he might just pull a rabbit out of the hat here. But then he went down a bloody rabbit hole instead of pulling the rabbit out of the hat. Yeah. And he started talking about, well, there's 600,000. No one knows how many illegal migrants there are in the United Kingdom. The policy should be we're going to detain and deport all of them to the maximum extent possible. It's not about 600,000. Then he started talking about 24,000 a year being put in camps, 5 jumbo jets leaving a day. And all of that is performative bullshit.
Yeah.
How can you say how many jumbo jets are going? Why are they going in jumbo jets? Why aren't they going in bloody boats, which are cheaper and take more people? Yeah. The whole thing is stupid. Yeah. And the day one, he said women and children too will be deported. And then he completely holed his deportation plan under the waterline the next day when he said women and children are going to be excluded. The minute you say women and children are going to be excluded, 2 things happen. All those men immediately start having families, because they know that even in a post-European Convention of Human Rights world, no British court's going to separate a father from their family. And because the child and the mother is not going to be deported, all the illegal men who are here, all the men who are here illegally will also be allowed to stay. So destroyed that bit of his deportation plan. And then the other thing was, of course, if you say women and children are free to stay, who do you think is going to start coming across the channel? Loads of women and children are going to start coming. You just change the nature of the illegal migration. And then the worst thing of the lot was that he said the European Convention of Human Rights will be removed from the United Kingdom with the exception of Northern Ireland.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible.
And so basically saying to every illegal migrant, if you want safety from our policies, go to Northern Ireland. He threw Northern Ireland under the bus.
Well, that's the whole thing about that, Ben. I mean, that is the thing that people have got to realise in Northern Ireland, that if Farage wins, That's what's going to happen. He is going to throw Northern Ireland under the bus in the same
Yeah.
way the Tory party did. And again, if I'm English, I was brought up in England. England's where my heart is. But in terms of because of my ethnicity. But my home, my family, my wife, and my children are here, and I don't see us as any different to any other part of the United Kingdom.
No.
We're all the same. We're all the same. We're kith
Yeah.
and kin. So to separate us even further beyond what the protocol's done is totally immoral.
I couldn't believe it when
and it
I
would create
heard it.
havoc. It would create havoc. There would be civil unrest if that happened, without a shadow
Absolutely.
of a doubt.
I mean, you'd see illegal migrants leave Great Britain instantly, and they'd be in Belfast, Londonderry, Enniskillen, right across Northern Ireland.
Yeah. So again, not a very well thought out plan by Nigel, unfortunately.
He needs a college.
He does.
Yeah.
That's the thing, because that's the thing about the college. The college takes the pressure off the leader. The leader can lead, and the college can do all the
heavy
deep
thinking,
thought work that they need to do. Well, Ben, thanks so much for that. It's massively appreciated. And again, a lot of questions. I mean, we did ask some quite deep questions there, and I'm sure if you're watching it in the audience, the answers were just straight out. There was no thought, there was no waffle. It was just well thought out planning of what needs to be done with the country. And that's what we need, Ben. We need this for the next election. It cannot, failure is not an option as far as I'm concerned. We've got to do it.
Yeah.
Brilliant, Ben.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. All the best.
Richard. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye. Bye.